Ever thought that all those hours you spent mastering a video game could, I don't know, actually make you a better doctor? It sounds kind of crazy, right? Well, a really fascinating new study shows how educators are literally transforming popular strategy games like Clash Royale into powerful learning tools for medical students. So let's dive into how they're hacking the games we already love to teach the doctors of tomorrow.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll dig into the engagement problem that a lot of classrooms are facing. Then, we'll look at the ingenious solution of hacking pop culture. After that, we'll do a deep dive into how Clash Royale was completely rebuilt for an anatomy class. We'll also see how the educators actually measured if it worked, and finally, we'll talk about what all this could mean for the future of learning.
Okay, so to really get why a medical school would even think about using video games, we first have to understand the core challenge that modern education is up against: a major drop in student engagement.
You know, this quote from the study pretty much says it all. The classic one-way lecture, it just isn't working anymore. Not for a generation that grew up completely immersed in interactive digital worlds. I mean, medical school is unbelievably tough, and just keeping students motivated and tuned in is a massive, massive hurdle.
Now, you're probably thinking, okay, so why not just build new educational games? Well, here's the problem. Creating a really good, high-quality game from scratch is a huge undertaking. It takes a whole team of experts, medical pros, game designers, developers, not to mention a ton of money and a whole lot of time.
And that brings us to a much, much smarter solution. Instead of trying to build a brand new engine from the ground up, what if you could just take one that's already a huge success and, well, tweak it? That's the whole idea behind hacking pop culture for the classroom. And check this out. This slide shows the concept so perfectly. On the left, you got the super popular game Among Us, where you're trying to find the alien imposter on your ship, and on the right, Among Pathogens. It's the same idea, but here the players are things like an infectious agent, an immune cell, or a clinician. The goal is to figure out the hidden disease by tracking symptoms. It's using the exact same game mechanics of deduction and deception, but for a totally different and life-saving lesson.
And they didn't just stop there. I mean, look at this table. They made a whole bunch of prototypes. They turned the world building of Minecraft into MedCraft, where you do anatomical construction. The Battle Royale shooter, Free Fire, became Battle of Bugs, which is all about clinical resource management. They even turned Wordle into Medle for mastering medical terms. The core idea is always the same. Take mechanics people already know and love and use them to teach something complex.
But out of all these cool ideas, one really stood out for its potential to teach something incredibly complex: physiology. So let's do a deep dive into how they completely transformed the strategy game Clash Royale.
So, to really get this, you have to understand the heart of Clash Royale: Elixir. It's pretty much your only resource. It slowly trickles into your meter over time, and every single card you play costs some of it. So winning isn't just about having the strongest troops. It's about spending your elixir smarter and more efficiently than your opponent. It's all about that long-term strategic thinking.
And this is where it gets really brilliant. In their medical version, Clash of Systems, your troops aren't knights and giants anymore. They're hormones, enzymes, and drugs. Your goal isn't to take down some tower, it's to complete a complex physiological pathway in the human body. But, and this is the key, the core mechanic, that strategic management of Elixir, is exactly the same.
Which, of course, leads to the big question, right? How on earth does managing a game resource actually teach you something as complicated as human physiology? And wow, this image just lays it all out perfectly. The game board itself is a biological pathway. To complete the HPA axis on the left, that's the body's stress response system. You can't just throw down cards randomly. You have to play them in the correct biological order to make the chain work. You're not just staring at a diagram and memorizing it, you are actively doing the biological process step by step.
Now, this all sounds really cool in theory, but the researchers had to answer the most important question of all. Is this just a fun distraction, or are students actually learning effectively? This is where the educator's evaluation comes in.
So, to make sure this was more than just a gimmick, they followed a really rigorous process. They showed these prototypes to both first-year med students and the faculty. They didn't just collect simple ratings. They also got detailed, open-ended feedback to figure out which of these game formats had real potential. When they asked the students, they basically boiled it down to 3 key things. First, was the game clear and easy to understand? Second, was it actually engaging to play? And third, did they feel like they were learning something valuable from it?
The faculty rated those same 3 things, but they added a 4th one that was absolutely critical: alignment with the curriculum. For any of this to be useful, it couldn't just be fun, it couldn't just be educational in some general way. No, it had to connect directly to specific things students were required to learn. That's the real test that separates a serious classroom tool from just being a novelty.
So what did the results say? Well, for a clash of systems, they were pretty darn good. You've got a combined 62% of students, that's well over half, who rated its engagement as either good or excellent. That's a really strong sign that yes, this approach can definitely grab and hold the attention of future doctors.
And all of this brings us to our final and maybe most important point: what this whole experiment tells us about the future of learning itself.
Because look, the real magic here isn't just about finding a new way to memorize facts. The very mechanics of a game like Clash Royale teach incredibly valuable skills. Managing your elixir teaches you resource allocation under pressure. Planning out your next few card plays teaches long-term strategic thinking. These are the very skills that make great doctors.
This quote from the study just hits the nail on the head. The game forces students to actively navigate complex sequences. It's that active participation, the strategy, the trial and error, the constant resource management that creates the perfect conditions for really, truly understanding and retaining these tough concepts for the long haul.
What this project really proves is that the games we play for fun are built on these incredibly powerful systems for teaching strategy and problem solving. It shows a battle arena can absolutely become an anatomy lab. So it leaves us with one final, really exciting question to think about. If any game can be a classroom, what should we learn next?